Well. Look who's come crawling back. Nah, I'm just joshing ya. You got me in a good mood today, so I'm not gonna destroy you. For now. But do you know why I'm in such a good mood today? It's because we're gonna talk about my most favorite restaurant in all of the Magic Kingdom. That's right, people. I've alluded to it before, but today I'm finally gonna talk to you about the one, the only, my beloved, the greatest of all Magic Kingdom quick service restaurants. So, Cosmic Ray and his stupid Starlight Cafe, Columbia Harbor House can sink on my nuts, Pinocchio Village House can pull my prick, and Pecos Bill can get thrown in the Briar Patch for all I care, because this video is about Casey's Corner, baby! Woo! But before we get into the nitty gritty, let's peep the fit. Now the fit isn't anything too crazy. It's basically just an old-fashioned baseball uniform with a blue cap, striped shirt and pants, and the blue socks with the obligatory non-slip shoes. But you also have an umpire's padding as well. And here's where the subtle genius of this costume comes into play. You see, that isn't just padding, it's an apron. Most other restaurants at Disney either make the cast members wear regular looking aprons or separate the kitchen staff from the front of house staff. But the Casey's outfit manages to not only implement an apron, but also makes it appropriately themed to the location in question. You might think that it's silly to be so enthusiastic over a uniform that you wear for work at Disney, but you know what? This is my goddamn video. I'll get however goddamn silly I want with it, and you better shut your fucking mouth about it if you know what's good for yous. Capiche? I'm sure that you all probably remember in the first video when I told you about when the trainer just straight up forgot to come and get me for Tomorrowland Terrace, right? And if you don't, what the hell are you doing? Go watch the first one, numbnut! Anyways, classic bit, right? Well, guess what happened on my first day of being cross-trained at Casey's? The trainer forgot to pick my ass up from Cast Crossroads again! And it happened with the same girl I was with last time! Man, I don't know what the hell it was that made people forget about us. Were we just particularly forgettable people, or did the system just want to troll us or something? Who knows? Luckily, that didn't happen the following days of training, but it's still crazy that it happened twice, and to the exact same set of people as well. I can't be the only one that thinks that's weird, right? Anyways, it's probably a good time to go over all the positions at Casey's and how much I liked them. Starting with trash and trays. I liked trash and trays. Basically, you would go around with the little rolling trash cart and replace all the trash and recycling bags in the cans. You would also pick up all of the trays stacked on top of the cans too. You would then throw your collected bags into something called the Bertha. Basically just a big rolling container in the back. When that was full, you would wheel it over to the trash compactor. One cool thing about it was that the compactor was right next to the storage area for the Jungle Cruise boats. So whenever you took the trash out, you gotta look over at the boats, which is pretty cool. As for the trays, you would then take them to the dishwasher when you had enough of them. You just left them on a big stack on the dish line and the washer would get to them eventually. This is a pretty nice position to get because you didn't have to interact with the guests too much. Just do your stuff. I mean, yeah, sometimes those trash bags could be heavy and nasty as hell, but overall, not a bad position. Outside and inside dining room. These positions covered a lot of the same ground, so I'll discuss them as one. These positions are responsible for keeping the dining areas, both outside and inside, clean and free of junk. This means wiping down empty tables, sweeping the floor of debris, taking away people's trays when they're finished, restocking the condiment bars when the condiments are running low, restocking the utensil holders, and in the case of the outside dining room specifically, refilling the water containers and cups. At Casey's, there's an outside table with 4 to 6 water coolers that look a bit similar to the coffee containers at TLT, except they're brown instead of black. You would have to make sure that they were all full. If some were running empty, you would have to get the roller cart out and take the empties back to the kitchen, where you'd have to refill them with ice and water. Then you would have to take them back out and put them back on the table. Since the full containers were heavy, you would have to make good use of the rising and lowering of the cart so you didn't break your damn back. Overall, these positions could be a bit of a pain sometimes, especially with the heavy water containers, but I never minded being put on these positions. Register. Alright, this is my least favorite position. Sort of the runner of Casey's, but without the physical exhaustion. So why did I hate Register so much? Well, for two big reasons. One was I had to talk a lot. Now don't be fooled by these videos where I'm talking into your ear for minutes on end. In real life, I ain't much of a talker, and I especially wasn't back then. After talking for a while, my mouth would get really goddamn dry, and it would often be a struggle to talk to the guests and list their orders back to them. And the second reason was the guests themselves. Now, I'd say that 90% of the guests who came up to the register were fine. But then there were the other 10%. Some of them would be rude, some of them wouldn't speak very well, and I would have to keep asking them about their order. Sometimes customers would pay with a weird, obscure methods of payment, and I would have to call a coordinator over to help me. Sometimes, someone would just come up to the register and start yapping in Spanish. Now, despite the fact that I took 5 years of Spanish classes in middle and high school, I could not speak a lick of Spanish. So whenever this happened, I'd have to lean over to another cast member who did speak Spanish and have to ask them to help me out. And if there wasn't anyone near me who did, I would have to go to the window and ask for someone. Anybody back there speak Spanish? Then there were the allergy orders. I didn't mind accommodating the guests for their allergy orders. The problem was that when the order was sent to the kitchen, I'd have to wait for a coordinator to come out and talk to the guests specifically about the allergy. And I would then just have to stand there and try to make awkward small talk with the guests, like, so, what was your favorite ride you went on today? Oh, Thunder Mountain, yeah, I like that one too. Sometimes I would try to look busy by fiddling around on the UI for the register, which, by the way, the registers at Casey's had the most outdated looking user interface I've ever seen. Looked like some Windows 95 shit. Which tracks because Casey's opened in 1995. But I'm getting a bit off track here. In conclusion, I didn't really like getting put on a register all that much. Between register and runner, I would say that runner is still worse, but I wouldn't want to work either position if I could help it. Drinks. This is a pretty simple position. Basically, you just stand in front of the drink dispensers and make the drinks according to the incoming drink orders on the screen above you. When you've made the drinks, just press a button and the next order comes up. When you made the drinks, there was this pad that you will put the drinks on. It had little sections that you were meant to put the drinks on, like a section for the Cokes, Diet Cokes, Sprites, etc. For the ice, you had a big tub of ice right below the drink container, and you would scoop a bit of it out before filling the cup. Now at Casey's, we had big ass drink cups. Big enough that when you selected the biggest fill option on the machine, you would still need to fill it a bit more. Now, the drinks syrup was liable to run out when you were on drinks, and if that happened, you had to go down to the stock room and change the syrup bag. This position could get a little chaotic during the rush periods, but I liked it well enough. Lobby room greeter and mobile greeter. Okay, your job for these positions was essentially crowd control. Lobby greeter was in charge of the front door, and mobile greeter was in charge of the side entrance, which was only used for mobile orders. As lobby greeter, it was your job to distribute people to each of the register lines in a relatively even fashion so that no one register was overwhelmed with guests. You would usually have another person to help you and guide the guests over to the proper line. This position could be somewhat of a pain, especially if it was busy, because you would often have a very crowded lobby, so you would just have to hold an entire line of people back from entering to not overwhelm everything. Mobile greeter was a bit different. For this position, you would be handed a tablet to look at people's mobile orders when they asked you to. On this greeter position, you basically held people back until their mobile orders showed that it was ready. From there, you would just show them to which area to pick up their food. This position could also get stressful if there was a bunch of people standing around that area, and especially if the kitchen was getting backed up with orders. Hungry people are not the kind of people you want to piss off, let me tell you. One thing that was kind of cool is that if you were on either position at the time of closing, you got to close the doors at Casey's, which was really cool. Overall, both positions were not the most desirable and could be stressful, but they still beat register by a mile. Fryers. Unlike the fryers at TLT, this one was a lot more active. Here you had 5 fryers instead of 1, and you would either be frying french fries or the corn dog nuggets, which are really good by the way. You should try them if you haven't. Basically, you just get a bag of fries or corn dog nuggies from the big block freezers, rip the bag open over the fryer baskets, dunk the fries or the corn dogs in the oil, and set the timer. Then you just waited. Once the fries or nuggies were done, you dump them into the big metal basket for the line to use. Now, at Casey's, we went through fries fast as hell. Like, I would dump a bag's worth of fries into the basket, and that shit would get used up in like 30 seconds on the line. The corn dog nuggets didn't go quite as fast as the fries, but they still went fast. I had to make sure to have at least 1 bag of corn dog nuggets frying and at least 2 to 3 bags of fries going at a time. It could be stressful at times, but I enjoyed it. Food runner. Now, here's the thing about the Casey's kitchen. It's small as hell. Like, it is one of the smallest kitchens in the Disney parks. Therefore, a lot of the toppings, drinks, and other food items can't be made in the Casey's kitchen. It has to be made over at the TLT kitchen. So there's a whole position at Casey's dedicated to seeing what the kitchen needs, taking a cart down to the utilidors, going over to the TLT kitchen, and getting the shit that you need. A lot of what was needed, like cheese, mint julep mix, baseball brownies, and other toppings would be in the big walk-in fridge. But others you would need to get the help of the kitchen staff to get. This mostly applied to the hot stuff that was needed, like the chili and the pulled pork. Now, in order to get your cart from Casey's to TLT, you had to take it from the kitchen through the Emporium store to the back lot area, which is how most people get to the kitchen, by the way. Then you would have to go to the end of the lot area to an elevator to get your cart down into the tunnels. Then you would walk your happy ass with the cart over to the rickety ass TLT elevator, hope it doesn't trap you in for no reason, and finally make it into the TLT kitchen. This whole process could take a long time to complete, especially for someone who is a slow walker. God forbid you get someone who walks slow as shit on Food Runner and you start running out of necessary items. They're gonna have to start sending more people over to get that shit. I've seen it happen, folks. It's not good. But as for my thoughts, I like Food Runner. It was nice getting to go over to a different place every once in a while during your shift, even if that place was TLT. Anchor. Alright, we're starting to get to some of the positions on the line. Anchor's main responsibility was to read the order tickets that came in from the machine and prepare the base hot dogs with the pork and chili, you know, the hot toppings. If you were on the mobile order side of the line, you would also have to change the mobile order ticket status to ready, which could be a pain in the ass sometimes, especially if it was busy and if your gloves were especially greasy. You would also have to get the buns in paper trays for the hot dogs when it wasn't on rush. I didn't mind being on Anchor, especially on the non-mobile order side. Not the worst position in the world to get. Bun prep. This is a special position that is only activated during the rushes. Your job is to get the buns and prepare the big and small hot dogs, as well as the little paper trays and the big plastic trays as well. Prepare them for the Anchor so that they may prepare the hot dogs as quickly as possible. This position could get pretty hectic, but I enjoyed it a surprising amount. Middle. This position was in charge of putting the cold condiments and toppings on the hot dogs, such as relish, BBQ sauce, shredded cheese, pico de gallo, etc. Now, one thing that was very weird about this position was that, despite being the middle, you were also responsible for putting the order trays in the correct window for serving. I have no idea why the hell they decided to give that responsibility to the middle person, but I guess they just liked it better that way. Window. On this position, you were in charge of preparing the orders of fries and corn dog nuggets. Sounds simple enough. You even have a fry scooper to help you out, but that shit is very hot and needs to be when people receive their order. It especially sucked when the corn dog nuggets were fresh out of the fryer piping hot. Your only protection against those scalding nuggets was a thin-ass plastic glove, which did not help at all. And because of the heat lamps to keep the fries and nuggets warm, this was also one of the hottest and sweatiest positions over at Casey's. When you got off, you were guaranteed to be sweating like a damn pig. And I sweat very easily. You can imagine how sweaty I was after an hour on the window. Overall, not one of my favorite positions, but tolerable. Filler. This was a fun one. On this position, you have to call out the order number as loudly as you can so that the guests can hear you. Because, you know, it's really loud in there. It is the only time that you get to yell at the park guests, which is awesome. If you were on mobile windows, you wouldn't really yell, but you would have to mark the order on one of the tablets as filled. If a mobile order had been waiting in the window for upwards of 15 minutes, that shit had to be spoiled. You know, the guests wanted to have fresh food and all. Sometimes people forgot to mark the filled orders as filled, and it resulted in the leaders having to give us multiple stern talking tos about it, because people kept fucking doing it. You also had to get some cold items, such as the lemonade mint julep, non-alcoholic by the way. Dry park, remember? There was also the chocolate milks, the baseball brownies, apple juices, oranges, and the Dasani water bottles. I swear, there was this one time where this LA socialite looking and sounding motherfucker came up to me and asked if we had smart water. We have Dasani, sir. And they were all disappointed and shit, like, it's fucking water. I mean, I know Dasani ain't ideal, but do you honestly expect Disney to have fucking smart water here? I don't think so. But getting back on topic, I liked filler. It was probably one of my favorite positions at Casey's. Hot dog cooker. Hot dog cooker was a very interesting position to be on. Your job was to cook the small and large hot dogs. Small hot dogs went on the hot dog roller for about 20 minutes, and the big hot dogs went into the steamers near the fryers for about 17 minutes. When the dogs were done, the big dogs would go into their warmer closer to the rollers, and the smaller dogs would go into the warmers that were closer to the number 2 window. Hot dog cooker could be a tricky position to work, not because it was particularly difficult or anything, but because you needed to have an eye for how many hot dogs you would need in the near future. You gotta keep in mind that these hot dogs took a good while to cook. So if you fucked up and didn't start cooking the hot dogs when you needed to, there's going to be a shortage for maybe 15 to 20 minutes if you're not careful. And at a fast food restaurant, 15 minutes might as well be 15 days to the guests. Luckily, there should have been a good stockpile of already cooked hot dogs by the time you got put on the position, but you still had to be careful. Overall, I didn't hate this position, but it could be a bit anxiety-inducing. Dishes. Dishes was pretty chill for the most part. You take a bunch of the trays that Trash and Trays brings you, rinse them off with your hose thingy, put them in the rack, run them through the dishwasher. The washer runs for about 20 seconds, then you move the washed trays out and stack them on the clean stacks for the anchors to use. This is another position that I was rather fond of. You just chill in the back and wash the dishes. Now closing the position was a different deal because you had to wash out so much other shit and then wipe down the whole area. But overall, not bad. Exit greeter. Yes, Casey's also had an exit greeter. When people got their food, they were supposed to leave the lobby through the doorway and head to the inside dining room. You didn't want people coming back through the waiting area trying to get shit, so you wanted to have someone to stand guard and prevent that. Basically, you just stood at the exit with a sign that says, exit, to prevent anyone from coming back in. Also answer questions and tell people where to go from there. Another pretty chill position in my book. Counter stock. On this position, it was your job to refill all of the drink cups, water and apple juice bottles, oranges, coffee, hot cocoa, mint julep mix in the machines, and anything else that the cast members out on the counter needed. Probably also be helping the people on the register get stuff since they can't leave. This position could get a bit hectic, but I could tolerate it pretty well. Stalker and GT. Now, these are two positions that you aren't trained to do by default at Casey's, and you have to apply to take training shifts for these. For Stalker, it's your job to get buns, frozen bags of fries and corn dog nuggets, the hot dogs, paper trays, and other essential stuff. I don't know much about the position, so that's all I can say with much confidence about it. GT I know a little bit more about, but not that much, so don't hold your breath. The GT is the person in charge of all of the cash that moves through the registers. They are in charge of making sure each register has the default amount of money at the beginning of the day, and they are in charge of making sure the registers have enough cash to make change throughout the day. At the end of the day, GT takes all the money out of the registers and puts it into the money cart. Then another cast member has to escort them to the office at TLT where they do some work on the computer or something. I don't know. I was never trained to be GT. I've only ever seen them do stuff from the times I've been assigned to escort them. Then they take the money cart down to the money office at Cast Crossroads where the GT deposits the money properly in one of the money receiving machines. Meanwhile, most of the times I was there, I would just kind of stand there dicking around because I didn't really have much to do. Couldn't tell you my thoughts on either Stalker or GT because I was never trained for it, but I did like getting the closing position for the money walk. That was just way better than the other closing positions. Before we talk about closing Casey's, we should talk about the food. Much like over at TLT, you get to try the food over at Casey's before you start. You got the chili cheese dog, self-explanatory. There was also the barbecue slaw dog. It's a hot dog with pulled pork, coleslaw, and barbecue sauce drizzled on top. I wasn't the biggest fan of this, mainly because of the coleslaw. I just don't like it. You could also get French fry orders with chili cheese or barbecue slaw on them, which I think was a pretty damn cool thing to do. There's also the aforementioned corn dog nuggets, which taste way better than I would assume given the name. Little bits of heaven if you ask me. Then there was the vegan Chicago dog. Now, I know what a lot of you may be thinking. Vegan hot dog? That shit sounds like ass! But this wasn't your average, everyday vegan hot dog. This was a spicy vegan hot dog. I was actually surprised how much I liked the spicy vegan dog, considering the reputation that a lot of vegan meat replacements have, but this one was actually pretty good. It's normally served Chicago style with relish, pico de gallo, and mustard, but you can ask for it just plain if you want. And you can get the regular hot dog Chicago style too if you want as well. That's it for the main courses, but there's other items such as the baseball brownie. I love the baseball brownie. It's kept nice and cool, right for the sweltering summer's day. And at the end of the shift, people on counter would usually take the baseball brownies still left in the small fridge up front on the counter and give them out to the guests as one little magical moment for the day. I remember I gave a brownie to this one little shy, quiet kid and his mom. The kid really reminded me of myself when I was his age. I was pretty shy too. So it felt especially nice to give out one last little bit of magic there. Another item was the lemonade mint julep. It was basically this lemonade slash mint flavored slushy with a little lemon and mint garnish. It was a pretty neat little drink that helped Casey stand out a bit more. Now, if I may just dick ride for Casey's a little bit more here, I would like to say that it was truly one of the best quick service restaurants in the Magic Kingdom, and possibly the entirety of Disney World in terms of value for money. Like, in every restaurant, you would have to pay like $5 for a drink, and normally you would just get one of those normal sized cups. But at Casey's, when I was there, if you pay for $5 worth of soda, you get $5 worth of soda. We gave out the big ass cups of soda. And if you get one of the big foot-long dogs with fries, it came out to about $14.99 before tax, which is pretty good for Walt Disney World for the amount of food that you get. Although one thing that sucked about the food and drink at Casey's was having to clean the containers afterwards. Yeah, it's time to go over the closing procedures, baby. There's the aforementioned money walk where you followed the GT around, but there are also other closing positions such as dining room. Basically, you cleaned up the outside and inside dining rooms, take out the trash, take the water containers back to the kitchen to be emptied and cleaned, and of course take the condiment containers and utensil dispensers back to the lobby to refill and store them. This position ain't too bad to get for closing. Counter closing. You had to wash everything on the counter in soapy water and then rinse them off with the cleaning solution. There was also a lot of shit that you had to send back to dish to be washed. One of those things, depending on what day it was, would have been the mint julep machines. I always hated having to take those damn things apart and put them back together again after they've been washed. It was so damn confusing. At the very end, you would also need to clean the dustpans and brooms out at this place near the elevators. There was this whole washing out area that we cleaned things out in, and it would get a little messy with the water spraying all over the place. Especially because I didn't do it all that often, which meant that I usually had to have someone help me out. Aside from that, it was kind of a boring thing to close. Dish. This one wasn't too complicated. Just wash all of the trays and everything else that needed to be washed before closing. This one could take a long ass time for you to complete sometimes because of the sheer amount of shit that needed to be washed. Almost goddamn everything needed to be washed. Then you needed to take the machine apart and get any garbage out of it, which could also take a while. Then you needed to clean the surfaces of anything left before you could leave. Not exactly fun. Hot dog cooker. Closing hot dog cooker was a pain in the ass because you needed to clean off the big hot dog rollers real goddamn good. And let me tell you, those fucking hot dog rollers got so goddamn dirty and caked with hot dog grease. It was fucking insane. And you had to clean the shits while they were still on so that all the shit could come off easier, which meant that you also needed to be really goddamn careful with the scrubbers that you would use. One wrong move and your ass is getting a 3rd-degree burn. I always used the long scrubber with the soapy water, but fuck, even then it took such a long ass time to get the hot dog rollers looking anywhere near clean. You would also need to clean between the little plastic bits on the end of the rollers, typically with a plastic knife and a napkin. Otherwise, it was almost impossible to get at. You would also need to clean out the hot dog steamers and warmers. The long hot dog steamers, you would just pour a cup of vinegar in and let it steam for a bit. Then after it's cooled, you take the metal racks out and have dish clean them. Same process for the footy warmer. For the warmers on the front of the line, you would just clean them off with soap and water. Counter would get the other side since it opened up to the other side as well. Now, after you were done cleaning the hot dog racks, you had to pick them bitches up and lay them on their sides. And these aren't small little rollers that you see at the gas station. These fuckers were like at least 3 feet wide by 4 feet long and weighed a fuck ton too. So you also needed to be careful with that. I always hated closing on hot dog cooker. It sucked. Kitchen. Closing kitchen was interesting. Basically, you spoil all of the food that wasn't sold at the end of the night. You weren't allowed to eat the food for the most part unless you got permission from the leader after post shift, which some days during the holidays they did allow us to do, but only rarely. After you spoil the food, you have to start cleaning the line, which got very dirty during the day. You also had to pick this big metal piece out of the middle of the line where all the condiments and shit went. I don't know why they didn't get a piece of equipment that was just the right height instead of choosing to just put a big metal piece in there. But, oh well. Send that big piece of shit back to dish and then clean the line and sweep the floor of the kitchen for any garbage left. Then you wrap the line in saran wrap, which I didn't entirely understand, but I guess that keeps the line cleaner for the next day. After the process is done, you basically help everyone else out. Simple as. Food cart. This one is pretty simple. You just take the dishes that can't be washed at Casey's, as well as the hot food items like chili or pulled pork that hadn't been opened, back to TLT. Then you just unload everything with the help of the kitchen staff. A pretty chill closing position if you ask me. There might be some other positions that I'm forgetting, but those were the most important ones. Now, the reason that people needed to be assigned specific closing positions was because at Casey's, you didn't get assigned a position and just stick with it for the whole day. Thank God. Instead, you were a part of something called the rotation. Whenever you clocked in or got back from break, you would get a piece of paper from the computer telling you which position you were to start on. You would then find the person whom you would be taking over from and hand them the paper. They would then get their new position and relinquish their old position to you as they went to find the person whose job they would be taking over. Rinse and repeat that for 5 to 8 people and you've got the shift rotation. I far preferred this kind of system other than the crap-ass system over at TLT. At Casey's, if you get stuck on a position you don't like, such as, I don't know, register, you're probably only going to be there for the next hour, maybe 2, and then someone will come to take your place. Then you get to go to a position you don't hate as much. Hell, you may even somewhat enjoy that position. Now, this was not perfect, because if there was a big rush of guests coming in, your ass was probably not getting off that position for like the next 3 hours. Like, if you clock in at 5, chances are your ass ain't getting off that position until fireworks start at 8:30. And in a very busy, crowded-ass restaurant, that could suck true ass. One more thing about closing that was interesting was that Casey's actually stayed open for longer than the park itself did by about half an hour, mostly to get people looking for a midnight snack on their way out. And one cool thing was that when we were closing, we stayed so late that we could see the contract cleaners. You would just see the cleaning trucks come rolling down Main Street. Really interesting to see. Now, you've probably heard a rumor that the music at the Disney parks doesn't turn off, and it goes like 24/7 in some creepy fashion. Yeah, that's a load of shit. You know why? Because those contractors don't want to listen to the damn Disney music while they're working. They turn that shit off. Now, if they were playing some Imagine Dragons or some shit like that, they probably wouldn't turn it off. I'd want to rip my skin off, but the contractors might be fine. They have no fucking taste. Now, I started working at Casey's when the Halloween parties really started ramping up in late September, October, and I loved working those parties over at Casey's. For one, the mobile order system went down for the parties, which I loved because you wouldn't have a bunch of goddamn mobile order trays just sitting in the damn windows blocking trays from coming out. I really hated that shit, man. Like, people wouldn't come to get their goddamn food, and then after we spoiled it, they would finally show up and we'd have to make that shit all over again for them. So, yeah, not dealing with that bullshit was awesome. They just opened all of the registers to compensate for the extra guests. Another thing that was awesome was the party itself. Now, you would have the Halloween party fireworks that go off at like 10:15. However, there was also a little power line show with Max Goof and some of the other backup dancers, and they would dance to the song Stand Out from the Goofy movie. I always loved being on outside dining whenever that happened because you got to listen to the song. You couldn't see shit because people were crowded around the street, but it was still cool. One time when I was taking trash out to the Bertha from the kitchen, I saw all the dancers and Max getting ready to do the show. And Max was heading in my direction to look at the big mirror that I was about to pass, and I got to fist bump him. I bet you motherfuckers wish you got to say that, huh? I got to fist bump Max Goof at Disney World. Well, guess what, fuckers? I get to say that. Not you. Try not to have an aneurysm out of jealousy, bub. Now, the reason that all these people were crowded around the street in the first place was because of the Boo to You parade. And it was a neat parade, you know. Probably like an A tier on the tier list of Disney parades. Still won't top the Main Street Electrical Parade. Nothing ever will. But a solid one nonetheless. But the thing I loved most about the parade wasn't anything in the parade itself, but the fact that it essentially gave us a 20-minute de facto break. Like, no one came in during the parade. Everyone was too busy watching it to give us any shit. You might have like 1 or 2 mouth breathers ask for a soda or some corn dog nuggets, but that was about it. And there were 2 of these things every party. One at 9:30 before the fireworks, and another at 11:30, which ended like 10 minutes before closing. It was glorious. And an added bonus was that if you were on counter or greeter, you got to see the parade go by through the windows. It was pretty damn cool. Another thing that was sick about the Halloween parties was that the exit that all the people in the parade was the same entryway that the people at Casey's would use to come in and out. And they had to go through the little locker area for Casey's as well. So some days I would just go to the back lot and see Aladdin, the Mad Hatter, Alice, Jasmine, Belle, and a bunch of other characters in the parade just heading out as I was taking out the garbage. As someone who went to the Disney parks a bunch as a kid, seeing that shit was surreal as hell. One question you may have is, where did you go on break? Casey's, unlike TLT, didn't have its own dedicated break room. Instead, we used this big shared break room down in the Utilidors called the Main Street Break Room. Everyone from the Emporium, ice cream shop, the Plaza restaurant, the bakery, and some others that I'm probably blanking on, all used that break room. It could suck sometimes trying to find a seat in that place, as there was usually a lot of people there at any given time. Still, it wasn't completely horrible. Have we had a funny injury story in a while? I don't think we have. So I'll tell you about one that happened to Casey's. So I was on bun prep, right? It was real goddamn busy that day. I'm getting buns prepped like it's no one's goddamn business. But then I look at my gloves. They're getting real dirty. Not to mention that my hands are so drenched in sweat that they've started to prune as if I were underwater. Since I have a crap ton of buns already prepped, I figured I'd wash my hands and get a new pair. I turn around, but as I turn, I slip on something. What it was, I will probably never know, but I slip and come tumbling down to the ground. After my fall, my knee is hurting like a bitch. I don't know if it's broken or if it's just been sprained really badly, but the pain at that point could have been either because it was so goddamn bad. The nearest coordinator and leader managed to help me up and walk me over to the back near the computer where they sat me down on a ladder. They ask if I'm fine. I say that I don't think my knee is broken and that it's probably just sprained. They get me a bag of ice for my knee for letting me sit there for a while. That injury was probably the worst pain I had felt in years. I don't know how I could have slipped so goddamn badly for it to end up like that, but it did. I think one guy said that it might have been that my knee might have popped out of its socket and then immediately popped back in, which may explain the horrible pain, and I believe it because holy shit, it was bad. After about half an hour, the pain was tolerable enough for me to begin walking around again, and I was able to continue the shift as normal, but the pain didn't go away for a while. And I mean weeks after, it still hurt. That was just a bad day all around. The Casey's crew didn't perform very well either. During the post-shift talk, the leader talked to us about how much the guests pay to get into the park and that they should be expecting good quality service, and that what we displayed that day was disappointing. Could have been talking about my ass though. I was working so goddamn hard that I slipped and fell. I'm innocent in all of that bullshit. Speaking of bullshit, Flamingo's Crossings. I haven't discussed them in a while, but I got an interesting little story. So one night, I get home from a long ass shift at Casey's Corner, and I just want to take my clothes off and get some damn sleep. Now, to get into your apartment at Flamingo's Crossings, it works somewhat like a hotel key card. You press the card against the reader for the correct door and you get in. If it's incorrect, it gives you a red light and won't let you in. Can you guess what the reader for my apartment did? Well, you're wrong because it did literally nothing. That's right. I pressed my key card against the reader and nothing happened. No green light, no red light or rejection noises. Fucking nothing. I try again. Nothing. I try one more time. It's still nothing. And that's when I realized the battery in the damn door lock had died. That's right, the damn battery died. You know what I had to do then? I had to walk my happy ass all the way back to the administrative building and tell them about the issue. Then I had to wait in there for a technician to go over and replace the damn battery in the door reader. And while I was waiting, I saw my roommate coming back from his shift, and I had to wave him over and tell him about what happened with the door. And we both had to just sit there and wait for the damn door to be fixed. Then after like half an hour, we finally get the okay to go back, and we can finally crash. You see, this is the shit Jamiroquai was warning us about. Fucking bullshit technology like this isn't goddamn helping us. If this shit happens to me again in the future, I'm gonna go full fucking Luddite on this shit, bro. Fuck! Anyways, on a more positive note, Flamingo Crossings had a little trick-or-treat event for the residents on Halloween Day, where you could get some candy at certain designated spots around the complex. Now, I didn't really bring any costumes with me, but I did want me some candy. But I didn't want to be one of those people who just went as themselves. So I split the difference and went in my Casey's uniform. Boo! Hey, that might have been lame, but it was better than all those people who just went in t-shirts and shorts. I at least tried. Somewhat. A little bit. Okay, it was the bare minimum, but most people can't even meet that standard, so yeah. Back to Casey's Corner now. The backlot area that we used a lot was right behind the train station from the Magic Kingdom Railroad, and when I came in at a certain time for some Casey shifts, I was able to see them backing the trains into the sheds for storage while I was on the shuttle bus. Just a cool thing I was able to see while on the way to work. There was also a time at Casey's Corner when I clocked out and all of the other cast members were told to meet the leader in the back lot. Now, I did not think that anything good was going to come from this, so I was about to get my shit and go when everyone, including the people from the ice cream parlor and the bakery, walked back through the door and they were all excited and shit. I asked someone what was going on and someone said that everyone was going to Haunted Mansion. This came as news to me and I said, fuck it, I'll come with. We go through the utilidors and up the back way to get to Haunted Mansion, and we all got to go on and ride it after a hard day's work. It was such a fucking experience to ride that thing in your work uniform with all of the cast members that you worked with every day. I loved it. I would show pictures, but they were all on my old phone, which broke and died a while back, taking many of my memories along with it. Fuck you, Samsung. If I may talk about the greeter positions a little more, there was actually a little unexpected perk of being on that position. And that was, sometimes, the guests would just give you little trinkets and snacks. When this happened the first time, I was so caught off guard. It was this little kid in a stroller, and they just handed me this bag with a Lego figurine of Stitch, which I still have, by the way. And if the guests give you anything that isn't cash, you can just keep it. I was also given like this little popper thing. I have no idea what the hell they're called or what they're even supposed to do, but it was also cool. I even got a bag that had this big sticker of Oogie Boogie from The Nightmare Before Christmas. I still have that on my laptop to this day. So, hey, if any of the people who gave me those are watching this, thanks. You're one of the cool guests. Now, I did not see this next thing happen myself, but it's still a funny story. Apparently, a special needs kid shit himself in the middle of the inside dining room one day. Yeah, I didn't see this happen, but I did see the custodial cast member cleaning that area up. Christ, it would have sucked so much ass to be one of those guys. There was another incident where some other Casey's people and I were made to stand guard in a spot where some kid had vomited all over until a custodial cast member came over to take care of it. Moral of the story is that you should be very nice to janitors, kids. They have to deal with some horrifying things for very little pay. And if you aren't nice to them,
I'll come get you.
Well, I've kept you folks here for a while, but what do you say to one last little story? So, you all remember that little short girl from TLT, right? Alan? Well, one shift when I was over at TLT, I realized it would be her last shift over there, and everyone was saying goodbye and stuff because she was getting transferred to a different part of the park. And you know, I was kind of sad. We'd gotten closer and become friends, bonding over the bullshit that TLT had to offer. And I said goodbye that day and didn't know if we'd ever see each other again. I didn't let it get me too down. Friends had come and gone in my life, and I was resigned to accepting that this was just another one that I may never see again. Then one night, as I'm sweeping up the outside dining area, and I see someone taking a collection of strollers to the front of the park. Nothing too out of the usual. Those cast members are a common sight during those hours, but something was familiar about this particular person. They're short, really short, like about as short as Alan was, and they have the same hair and similar looking glasses, and I stop and ask myself, is that Alan? Then, the stroller person stops and looks at me as if they're recognizing me as well. Then they call my name, and at that point, I realize that it is in fact Alan. We talk for a few minutes and talk about how we're enjoying our new positions. It was nice to just catch up with someone after thinking you might never see them again. After that, we said goodbye and went on our merry ways, closing down the Magic Kingdom. Well, that's about all the time I've got today. Oh, but don't you worry your pretty little face. We're still not done with all of my Disney stories. I've still got a trove of stories left for you all to hear. So stay tuned, and you better stay tuned or else. And don't forget to like and subscribe, or else bad things might happen. Bye! This has been a Sojourner production.
Now watch this drive.